fears that we have almost always are stemmed in past lifetime trauma creates this
Mm.
lifetime's drama, and it's not we're a victim of this, we're magnetizing this to us so that we can heal if we so
Mhm.
choose. Again, we have free will, we can do whatever we want to do with it.
Well, hello, Stevie. Thank you so much for joining me today on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's it's an honor to be able to speak with you today and bring all of your insight, input, and quite interesting astrological side of things that we haven't really had on the show yet. So I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
And I would love to give an introduction, yet I think you could probably do that a little bit better than myself and really give us some some input and background on who you are and what you do. So, do you mind sharing with the audience everything about you in a nutshell,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would call myself a soul blueprint alchemist astrologer, and that really just means that I help people focus on what their soul is doing here in this life using the magic of astrology. Um, it's something I've been doing for over 10 years now, and most of my studies have been in what that you would call evolutionary astrology, which is really focused on like the past life self and the stuff that we've mastered and places we get really stuck because we've been in that archetype for so long, for so many lives. And then what are we doing with that and what's our sole purpose and why did we sign up for this certain contract essentially? So helping people really understand that and honor that and then find their flow within it is like my special sauce.
That's amazing, and that's really interesting. So, from what I'm hearing, it's you really have the kind of a specialty in some of the past life aspects of being able to integrate that here now with aligning with your soul purpose. We hear a lot about like what's your soul purpose in this lifetime and all that kind of stuff, but you're kind of saying, well, what's happened before and how is that affecting the now?
Yeah, because we often get stuck in that past because it's like our comfort zone, you know? And so if we get stuck there for too long, it's very familiar and, we can hang out in it and it's fine. We've mastered it, but it doesn't feel like it lights us up or makes us feel alive. And so
Mm,
then our soul will like send people our way or circumstances will come in where it's like, oh no, remember you signed up for this. And they work together, of course, right?
uh-huh.
But our soul's always attracting things to like push us back to why we came here in the first place, what we signed up for.
That's really interesting. So, and it's that classic line of it's like all happening for us, but then this is kind of taking it levels deeper, deeper understanding of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
So,
really it's really about too like that you signed up for this, right? And so we're not victims of our circumstance as much as it's hard to be a human on earth. And I think when
very
we're
much
making
so.
our contracts, right, and deciding what we're doing and how we're doing it, we're in unconditional love frequency, so we're not necessarily like thinking about suffering and emotions and all the lessons and all the karmic like sludge that we have to deal with, right? So when we're in that state, it's one thing, but when we come down here, we're like, oh, why did I sign up for this
I
doing here? But
think we can all resonate with that a little bit. I
yeah,
was feeling that way
yeah,
yesterday.
yeah, exactly. But the map will really tell us like, but this is why. And if you lean into these like sticky parts of you, then you're rewarded, right? Then things happen that are like more in a flow state. So it's helpful.
That's, yeah, definitely helpful. It definitely resonates. So you were saying it in there too, because it really, you might be doing something that you're doing, but it doesn't really light you up. Can you speak more about that? Like, what is that indicating to someone, or how can they truly find like what it is that lights them up? I remember being at a point in my life where I was like, uh, I don't know what I want to do. I mean, I think that's happened multiple times. And is that like an indicator to then explore that more, or
Yeah.
how can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in astrology, you really want to look to your south node. You guys don't have to know anything what that means, but that's the place I really speak that we get stuck in is our south node. And it doesn't have to be related to work, right? I think we often will like well, my life purpose has to be my work. At least I do that.
So true. Yeah, no, that's really, really true. We're kind of
Yeah.
conditioned that way. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll have clients and they'll be like, so what's my life purpose? I'm like, oh, but you're just meant to like heal yourself and like take care of your body and feel safe. And they're like, what?
What? No, that answer doesn't work on
What? I'm
every.
doing that, but like what? No, I'm like, but you're doing it. Everyone's most likely doing it, right? And we're it's like always like our North Star. So we're going towards it. It's not necessarily like a destination we get to and then we're not stuck anymore. And so it's like an evolving spiral, right? We're always
Mm,
like trying to climb it. But the South Node really speaks to like that part of us. And it's a place where I don't even want to say like it's like you want to take the gifts of the South Node. Like for example, mine's in Capricorn, which means I take a lot of responsibility. I am a workaholic. And if I notice those tendencies, right? If you find your South Node just at a practical lens, look up the archetype. Just go to ChatGPT and say like, what's a South Node in Capricorn or whatever it means. And it looks like upside down headphones, guys, in your chart. And
mm,
then if you notice those tendencies happening, you're like, ooh, I need to like step back from this, right? And you lean more into the opposite sign, which is your north node, and look up those archetypal lenses. And you're like, okay, I need to do more of that, right? So it's
mm,
not necessarily work related, although often we will go into careers that, use these gifts
hmm.
essentially. And it's not about like disowning your South Node. It's about owning it, but not letting it run you, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of our default is the South Node.
Yes.
That's gotcha.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And so that's interesting. And my husband's a Capricorn too, so I was trying not to go down that personal road right now.
Hard to
I'm
do,
like,
right?
hmm. Um, but with that, like, one thing I always love to ask everybody that's on the show is like, how did you arrive here? Like, how did you arrive here where you're at now? What kind of like led you down this path? And kind of discovering your own purpose, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a an interesting question because I was pretty skeptical of astrology when it came knocking, and I'm a silversmith, so I'm an artist and a maker, and I was working in marketing and corporate for a long time in Chicago, and then I just had this like extreme itch to not be like employed by someone, to be my own boss. Like it's just something that is so visceral for me. So I jumped crazily and the universe supported me and I like ran my own jewelry business, which I still have. I'm still silversmith. But about 10 or so years ago, I found these videos of Deborah Silverman, and she's a pretty famous astrologer on YouTube. And she was dressing in all the signs. So she was dressing as like a Taurus in her clothes, and just like it was hilarious. You should look them up,
Hmm.
you guys. Deborah Silverman on YouTube. Um, and it made me laugh so hard. And I was like, holy shit, I'm that. Like she's nailing it. She's totally nailing it. Still very skeptical, but astrology just kept like whispering in my ear. And so then a few weeks later, I was like, told my husband, I'm like, I have to do this. I don't actually believe in it, but I have to do this. And I would call myself a very spiritual person. I was always on a journey my whole
Hmm.
life. And I love the stars and everything about it. But, astrology, especially 10 years ago, was really demonized and like, oh, it's just horse crap and it's not real and it's just new age,
Oh yeah.
which
A
isn't the
lot's
case.
changed in 10 years,
A
for
lot
sure.
changed in 10 years. And even, the people that were astrologers long, long before me. And so I started to dive in and it was unbelievable. It had like so many aha moments of like, oh my gosh, that's me and that's me and that's me. Because we're not just our sun sign, right? We're like so many, think about it like passengers on a bus. Like there's so many personalities inside of us. And
Hmm.
some of them have their own agenda and some of them get along and some of them don't get along. And they're each activated in different ways throughout the years and months and days even. And so understanding that and like the why I am who I am, and that's part
Right.
of my purpose too, just like blew my mind. And then I was like, okay, I have to give this to people. I'm obsessed with this. I'm a believer.
That's funny. And it doesn't usually start that way, right? It's like, oh, I have to learn this. And then it's like, no, I have to share this. At some
Yes.
point, it flips. I love that analogy of the bus, of all the people on the bus. That I don't think I've ever heard it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. It's like there's always these different. kind of things showing up that want something, whether it's, we hear ego and things like that all the time, or soul, but you're describing it a little bit differently, that there's all these, how would you describe that? They're just different personalities?
Yeah, it's like we're multifaceted. We like to put
Mm-hmm.
ourselves in boxes and label ourselves, like even I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Taurus. Like, yeah, you have that archetype strongly in you, right? But you also have all the other ones, and some of them are louder than others, but it's definitely more along those lines. And the whole passenger on the bus is you, right? The bus is you essentially, and all like how you work within it is very all of your different planets and placements. And like I said, some of them get along really well. They're like on a team and they're harmonized. And some of them are like in a boxing ring.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes one is activated by a new moon or another planet where you're really feeling that. That's why sometimes we think we're crazy because some days are like we're so angry and some days we're so loving and that's why. It's just energy activations.
Energy activations, that's a really clear, simple way of explaining that.
Yeah.
And with like today is a new moon, correct? Today is a
Yeah.
new moon, and we just started the lunar new year.
Yeah.
So what is all of that bringing up for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So today is the new moon in Aquarius and the Lunar New Year. And this starts, and I'm not a Chinese astrologer, but this starts the year of the snake. And this is a numerology year. And nines are the end, and snakes are the shed. And
Ah,
so it's this year is like a huge ending for humanity and in our individual lives too. And then we're going to see glimpses of the new birth that we're birthing into. I would say 2025 especially is a year where we're going to be ending and beginning and kind of going back and forth
mm-hmm,
within that cycle. But this new moon specifically is all about, am I in the right groups that see me as an individual? And do I need to change the groups that I'm in? And can I use my individual gifts to help humanity and help my community or my friends? Or how do I give back to the greater good? Um,
mm-hmm.
Aquarius is really interesting archetype because, and we're in the age of Aquarius, right?
Right.
Where it's the shadow of it is that we lose our individual sense because we do what's best for the group, which is a severe problem that we have, mob
Yeah.
mentality. And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, we're all looking to like use innovation and different ways of thinking to come together, to belong, to do what's best for the group, to do what's best for humanity, to evolve and ascend in our human bodies. So this new moon is like us planting a seed into how we can use our own gifts to help humanity evolve. Um, and with new moons, you're planting a seed so that you don't really know. You're just saying, I intend to
Mm-hmm.
XYZ, right? Like I had a couple of friendships fall away already this Aquarius season, and I asked the universe, can you wash me of these people if it's not right for me? And instantly it happened. And other people are coming into my life too, because Aquarius is really like our friendship groups in our community.
That's really interesting. That's where I was going to ask you of like a couple examples just for myself and everyone listening of like, what does that mean, groups? Because people go right to work. I mean, that's where I went first.
Yep.
And, but it's more than that. Like groups of people, just friendships, maybe community groups, gym. It could even be like the gym group or something like that.
Absolutely. Because we go to the group to see ourselves, right? And to feel a sense of belonging. But Aquarius wants to make it very clear that you're allowed to show up as like your weirdo, who authentically who you are without like all the stories, right?
Uh-huh.
Through the stories, like come as your weird wild self and belong. And so that's what we're all like planting the seed of right now is like how do we make that our reality? And that sometimes means that some people have to fall away or you have to not, you know, cancel the group or cancel a gym membership because it doesn't feel like the energy is right for you there.
Hmm.
And then call in new ones where you can show up to the group as your authentic, weirdo, wild self and like feel like you belong and they see you and you see them, right? You're giving back. It's not just you, them seeing you. It's the whole thing.
Right. It's a whole co-creation
Absolutely.
experience. So you had said in there like washing away. Like can you repeat that again of like what was your intention and just like what is that process if somebody's wanting to do that?
Yeah, it's funny because I had someone come into my life and an opportunity where I knew like my gut. And I also just want to caveat because I'm also into human design. Not everybody has a sacral gut response, right?
Uh-huh.
It's not true. A lot of us do. But for me, I do. And I instantly kind of knew like this isn't, but I just, I do that thing where you just like, oh, it's fine. I'll just do it. It's not a big deal. It's just an hour of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
this relationship. Anyways, I just kept feeling it stronger and stronger, but I didn't necessarily want to close the door. I wanted to experiment because we're allowed to, we're
Wow.
human. So I just said to my guides, can you make it very clear this week if this person's not in alignment or also not that it's going to harm me, but that's not going to help me being in this
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And within 2 days, things happen, which I won't go into, that like completely like solidified. Okay, it's gone. And there's no like, I have no anger, no nothing towards it. It's just like, thank you for that
Right. It
answer.
was just a clear time to
Yeah,
transition or pivot or new direction.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. And so you can always ask your guides and you can ask them to make it quick. Like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it doesn't always happen for you quick, but sometimes it can really happen quick.
Yes, sometimes it can. It's funny how things show up when you're ready for them and when you ask for them and ask for
Yeah,
clarity and all those things.
totally.
Um, so you've touched about human design. Somewhat familiar with that, not extensively, but can you give a brief like overview on what human design is?
Yeah,
Because
human
that makes
design.
sense. Those would go kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, totally. Human design is another system that, and I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means. I've studied astrology so much longer, but it's a system that uses different types of modalities. It uses the chakra system, it uses the I Ching, it uses astrology, and it really is this another map that tells you like who you are essentially, and where your power portals are. And I think the most interesting thing about human design is that when we follow our strategy, which for a generator is, which is what I am, is are you satisfied? Oh, you're frustrated. Okay, you're not in alignment. So it's just like
Hmm.
two simple words. So just pro tip for anybody, go look up your human design and go see what your strategy two words are. And if you just use that to be in your authentic self,
Hmm.
which sometimes for me as a generator, satisfaction is doing the dishes, right? Or
Hmm.
like, it doesn't always have to be something that's bringing in money or my business or anything like that. It can just be like, oh, I shoveled and that felt so good. I shoveled the snow.
Yeah.
But when you're doing something like from a should place, then you become frustrated. And so that's true for manifesting generators and generators. And projectors, I believe it's success and anger.
Hmm.
Um, so if you feel like it's successful, yeah. So, anyways, just using your authority will literally change your life. It's wild.
That is, again, I have to revisit that. I'm pretty sure I'm a generator too. Um, and for those listening, it's like these are just great tools, especially the astrology part of it that you're specialized in, and of learning more about yourself. That's kind of what I'm hearing. It's like you're learning more about yourself, and the more you kind of learn about yourself, then the more you can be more present, you can be more aligned, you can be more um not kind of searching for like what's out there. You're realizing what you already have, like what you came into this life with.
Yeah. And then there's like that acceptance piece, right? Where you just accept
Oh,
who,
that part.
and
Yeah,
then like you're not
the tough
struggling
part.
as, yeah, and that you're not struggling as much. And then you're just in more alignment with like your natural state of being and not what society's told you you are, or, and or
Uh-huh.
even like why that's happened to you, why you've attracted the parents that you have and relationships that you've had. Like you take your power back. That's why I love it so much. It's like I'm not a victim anymore. I chose this. So I'm going to keep attracting these things that I'm working through because I need to
Mhm.
work through them, right? And then it just changes the game.
Yeah. Yeah, that alone, I love that you shared that. The victim mentality is, it's like something we just kind of grow up with, right? And we are kind of like learn that they did this to me, this happened to me, all those things. And breaking out of that takes time and energy and exploration. And astrology is something that you found was like really supportive of that and really resonated with you. What if there is like what the clients you've worked with, without, of course, naming names or anything like that, but like how has it impacted their lives? Or like what have you seen that has been the greatest shift or the greatest change of like people coming into your space and really like learning more about this?
Yeah. Um, I'm a little bit of a drama queen and I really like the drama of like the aha moments that people have. So I tend
Yeah.
to
It's
attract
great,
that.
right?
It's so good because I did the same thing. I'm still doing the same thing. This still happens to me. I still have these big aha moments with astrology when I look up my chart and I'm seeing what's happening. I'm like, no wonder. Like, oh my gosh, of course. Anyways,
Uh-huh.
um, most of the time, that's the reason why I call myself an alchemist. And that's in my birth chart too, that archetype is because I want people to like shed this old garbagey stuff of like, you know, the gook that like makes us very small, keeps us very small. And so most of the times when I work with people, sometimes just one-on-one for one session, and then sometimes we'll do like a whole year, or we'll do a really intensive 6 months or 4 months. I have many different ways of doing it. But usually the clients that I get to work with long term walk away super empowered,
Hmm.
and really clear about like how to take action and what their next steps are. And sometimes it means you're not supposed to take action, right? Sometimes the cycles are like, like right now
No.
we're in that cycle and a hermit of like, we're all kind of refining ourselves. We're not like meant to take brand new action and move forward in our normal typical way because of Mars, but they really start to embody their essence of like who the F they are. And then from that space, they start to make intentional action in their life. So a lot of times it's people that are in a mundane job that they hate.
Mm.
Um, and then they already know this. I just validate people.
Hmm.
You guys know all of this stuff, right? I just
Right.
tell you like it's right here in this map. And this is how you
Right.
can work it in a practical way because I'm a very earthy person, so I like all the knowledge, but if you don't pull it down like into a practical sense of like how the heck are we going to use this, it's just information that's swimming in our brain. Um,
Hmm.
and so I like to give people like actionable steps on how to work with the energy that they naturally are, or that's not knocking on their door. Because that's the thing, and different energies come knocking every day, month, year, depending on where you're at in your life, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a lot of clients that will end up in even especially in jobs that they don't want to be in anymore, and they know that, and they're wondering like, what is it? How can I give back to humanity? I want more out of life. Or
Mhm.
they're already doing that, and then we amplify it together. I work with a lot of business owners because that's what I
Mhm.
am, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You have experience there for sure.
Yeah.
So is that you're seeing a lot of that lately then as like people that are in maybe that traditional 9 to 5 or corporate type job or whatever it is that the path we were all supposed to go down or we were taught to go down,
Yes.
and more people are saying this just doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah. I think people are so tired of the systems and structures that we were born into. And we know
Yeah.
they're falling. And so we don't really want to give them too much energy. You know, we're all like leaning into creating a more innovative reality for ourselves. And so part of that is like, you came here to give back, whether
Hmm.
that's a garbage truck driver or it doesn't matter, right? You can sit in your bedroom and give back to the universe by just being in loving energy. It doesn't have to be like doing. But I think a lot of people are being activated to be like, oh, I need to like step into my service to humanity.
I I love that you mentioned that because I think a lot of people um I've heard that a lot of like it doesn't matter what you do, it's more like the intention you have with it. And I love that. And then I think it's also really hard for people to conceptualize that or to be okay with that or to be accepting of that. Like you were saying, you were sharing with somebody that it's the season for them to not take action and not do anything. And we're all like, "Ugh." Like,
What do you mean?
what
What
do
do
you
you
mean? How do
mean?
I do that?
I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. We're
Yeah.
so programmed, right? To like be
Yes.
like our value and worth is tied with what we do and
Do.
our
Yeah.
masculine, right? But like where we're headed in the cosmos is so much more feminine, which is more
Hmm.
about like being and receiving and allowing and all that stuff that's like so hard for us to do.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? You're saying we're headed into more like feminine. Like, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
And how does that affect, I see a lot of different men in my life. Yeah, I'm married, I have a son, and just like they're trying to all still have their identity, right, as a man, and then everything's going to more feminine energy. What can you add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at like the systems and structures we're living in, right? We look for our authority outside of ourselves. So like the government, our bosses, our teachers, our parents, like even a lot of us grew up with authoritarian parenting, right?
Hmm.
Not necessarily how it's going these days. Like we're giving our
Changed a lot.
children, right, like
Yeah.
emotional intelligence maybe, and like treating them like a human and letting them be their own inner authority. Like I'm so passionate about that topic, but we're doing it from like the ground up where if we teach our children to really be in more of like a receiving, well, how do you feel about it? And maybe you should sit in your feelings and not let these things get really stuck in you. That's like
Mhm.
one way in which it's evolving. And the other way is because the invitation right now for everybody is to look inward, which again is super duper hard for us because we always look outward to find answers. It's just like you said earlier, that's like what we've been taught our whole lives by everyone in every system, right?
Right.
But what's going to happen over the next probably 5 to 10 years is our education system is going to completely change. Our economy is going to change. Our housing market, like every system that was built in a masculine, work hard, productive sort of way. And I also want to say like the masculine is so incredibly sacred. And I'm not
Yeah.
one of those people that's like down with
Oh, I love
men.
that you added that because I feel the same way. They're
Speak that
both,
language.
yeah,
Yeah, they're both
so much so.
so like they're 50-50. We're meant to like be supported by the masculine and feel safe by the masculine and have some sort of structure that the feminine can then like receive and build and into it,
They're
right?
complementing each other. They're like
Yes.
both needed so much so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I say we're moving into more of a feminine time, all I'm saying is we're rebalancing the feminine,
Hmm.
right? And that doesn't mean that like the feminine women take over. That's not at all how it's supposed to be. Like the masculine, whether that's when I'm not talking about gender here, right? The
Right.
masculine
The
is to
energy.
hold the container to keep us safe and then support us, support the feminine to listen and feel into what needs to be created. It's
Hmm.
birth, right? So like the masculine holds the container and the feminine is the one that can birth new form and create. And so we're moving into a time in the cosmos where we're all reuniting. And in order to do that, we all have to honor the feminine that's been lost, which
Hmm.
mostly just means listening to our intuition, right? And getting out of that like doing and be more and listen more and quiet more like and this is for men and women. We're all
Hmm.
being asked to do these things. We're all being asked to heal our emotional body and the shame and fear and guilt that we've carried because we were taught a certain kind of way. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I think I appreciate you sharing that because I think that just adds more to the understanding. I think our brains, I'll speak for myself, but sometimes when we hear masculine and feminine, I can't even talk, masculine and feminine, it very much wants to go to men and women, right? That's just the pattern and the conditioning in our brain. And what you're saying and reiterating is it's not gender, it's the energy of masculine, the energy of feminine, and just how those are designed to work together and support each other
Yeah.
and co-create.
Absolutely. And I think too, like you can even look in your chart for this. Like Mars is more masculine, he's action oriented, and right now he's retrograde. So that's why we're all like, oh, where's our masculine? Where's my motivation? Where's my drive? Uh, so, we as
That's
women, we
that's so
use this.
funny. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
was like this last year, I was like, where did it go?
I keep seeing the memes of like, how is it still January?
Yeah.
We're still in January.
It
And it's
said, for all the healers and spiritual coaches out there, we're on the 75th day of January or something like
yes,
that. And had this hilarious meme. I
yes,
was like, it
which
does
is
feel that way.
it does. And that's because like our action and masculine physical energy is like moving backwards, meaning like we're meant to refine and think about how we used to take action. Maybe it's going to be different, right? We're all
Oh,
like rethinking our masculine essentially, which is Mars. And then you can look to Venus for feminine. And what's so interesting is there's like a Mars will be moving forward at the end of February. So we're all going to start to get our mojo back with like
okay, great. I was going to ask
feminine,
that question.
yeah, the masculine fire is coming back. And we're going to be taking different action now because we spent so long in the sludginess of not.
Uh-huh.
But then it's so fascinating. And this happens every 2 years, Mars moves backwards. And every 18 months, Venus moves backwards. And a few days after Mars starts moving forward, guess who moves backwards? It's Venus, which that doesn't
Huh.
usually happen where our masculine energy is being pulled. And then right after, now our feminine is. I find that
Uh-huh.
super fascinating. And so even the first 6 months of this year are slow. Like we're in
Are they?
a more hermit type stage. Once we get towards like the end of April and May, things start to kind of pick up again.
Okay.
But even we're even going to be tested in our feminine to say like, well, are your values the same? Do you actually like feel worthy of what you want and you desire? And so we're going to have this moment with our feminine in March that says like, let's reassess this too.
Hmm.
So you can look to the chart to find these archetypes as well. And it's not just Mars and Venus, but those do play a huge role in our masculine and feminine. And both men and women have both of these things, right?
Yeah, it was kind of funny as you were talking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never put that together like astrologically that that book that was like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That's
Venus.
why it was titled that. I'm like, oh my
How
God.
I've never read that. I should maybe read it. I have no idea what it
I
says, but
haven't either, but I just remember it was such a big deal for,
it
or such a
was.
referenced book for
Yes,
a while. Yeah.
it's true. It's true. We both have all of those things. And some people, like even in a female body, have more masculine energy just by archetypal and vice versa, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Um, so also in there, you had mentioned that because this is all just super fascinating. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm learning so much just by sitting here talking to you. And you had said, like 10 years ago, this astrology stuff wasn't so common, right? And I remember when I had started exploring like energy work and some of these things and Reiki or angel card readers or whatever, that was probably like 15 years ago. So I didn't talk about it too much because it was, still kind of, at least around here, kind of weird. But then I started mentioning Reiki about 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, people are actually a little familiar. But now, if you mention Reiki to anybody, or almost anybody, a lot of people are really familiar with at least Reiki, and I just use that as like a point of reference of like how many more people are aware of more of these things now.
Yeah.
So it's changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years. How do you feel, or what do you see is going to change in the next, 5 to 10 years? Like, are more people jumping on this exploration journey of everything we kind of like? It seems like we kind of just pushed it away and forgot because it's been prevalent in other countries and other cultures and all that stuff for quite a long time. We just didn't really embrace it here
Yeah.
in the US at all.
Totally. And I think like this is going back to that masculine, feminine, like when we tune into the energy side of things, that's more feminine, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I think that it's only going to become louder and louder and more common and more common. I imagine astrology is going to be infused into everything at some point. And energy, humans are really understanding the science of energy. That's the age of Aquarius that we're moving into, is like how does science and spirituality mirror each other?
Hmm.
Not how they like do this. Because we've been in the age where like they don't,
Yeah, it's
if
this
you
or
talk
that.
about energy, they're like,
Yeah.
"Pfft." But like we know now, right? Many of us have known this forever that like energy doesn't die. It's
Hmm.
just reformed into something else. It's impossible for energy to die. That's proven in quantum physics, right? In
Hmm.
science. And so I think we're all going to be starting to understand how frequency, energy, and sound are going to be beautifully intentionally healing for us. So I imagine, and just looking at the astrology of what's coming, everyone's going to be embracing this and having many quicker healing moments because we're going to be understanding energy, which is something we've
Because
always
it's all
had.
coming together more rather
Yes.
than, yeah.
Yeah. Because even like, Reiki is all energy based, astrology
Mhm.
is all energy based. Like at least the astrology that I practice is like Mars has a consciousness, has an energy, and then it comes down and it affects you, sometimes in an angry way, sometimes in a passionate way. They're just energies, and we're energy, and the earth is energy. And so as we're moving through the age of Aquarius and where we are actually in the cosmos, there's actually more light.
Mhm.
And that means that the earth's vibrational frequency is rising, and we're affected by her first, right? Because we're humans and we're grounded and rooted in her energy. So that means we have to also calibrate to her frequency rising, which
Mm.
isn't always rainbows and sunshine, as we know.
Yeah, signing up for life on Earth is definitely not all rainbows and sunshine.
No, definitely not.
Unicorns.
No. Maybe eventually it will be like a Lisa Frank scene. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh, right? I might geek out for a moment. I had Lisa Frank like sticker book and like all the stickers, that was my childhood and Rainbow Bright. So,
Loved her stuff.
yeah, same. Same. And it's kind of funny, not to get off topic, but it's like there's some part of you that really resonated with it. I mean, that's how I feel. Of like there's some part of me that really resonated with me, and she was just uh an expression of something
Yep,
that like we really seem to connect with inside.
totally. Totally. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us were probably fairies in past lives, or, lived on different planets or something that it actually may have looked like that. I don't know.
I know. I often wonder about that too. Just like because you're like, there's a part of me that's no, like unicorns are really real. They are definitely real. Mermaids too, just saying. No.
Yep, yep. Unicorns, dragons, like
Yeah.
all that stuff. And most likely live here at a different vibrational frequency or live somewhere else, or maybe lived here at some point. Like there's so very little that we know about like vibration and frequency to know like how much
Absolutely.
we can see and can't see, like we could get real weird in talking about that. Um,
Yeah. Well, I love the weird, so I mean, I'm
yeah.
for it anytime. And like you said, this year is all about the weird, like embracing the weird, letting go of those stories, which it just makes so much sense like hearing you say that because it's like even recently I've been at some different places, some different events, and it just feels like the stories are dropping away. Like we're so programmed with the story and like explaining how we are and who we are and what we are and like and it's not gone, but it does seem less so that people are willing to give up some of that more and
Yeah.
not spend the conversation on all of that as
Yeah.
much as
I
much.
completely agree. I completely see the same thing. And I think honestly, it's going to be happening at an even more rapid pace the next few years. Like we're going to start to see some of that gookiness fall away and like we're questioning, is this me? Or is this just like an
Mm,
old story I was told to be? And just
right.
caveat, some of these stories come from our past lives and then they're mirrored in this life. And so they're super thick.
Oh,
They're harder
can,
to like,
can
let
you
go.
go like deeper or weirder on that? Like
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. I find that usually our biggest wounds, like when I'm doing sessions with people, I have a lot of people that were like killed during the witch trials.
Mm,
I have a lot of people that like stood up for women or children or animals and just like got their head chopped. Most of the people that are in the spiritual realm right now have had very traumatic deaths from past lives. Um, and we came back to knowing that we'd be safe in this one to like talk about it, right? Have this
mm,
conversation that we're having and not get our head chopped off.
right.
Right?
Right.
And so often our wounds will be like, how do I speak out my truth? Or how do I share my voice? Or maybe it's scarcity mindset, like I can't call in the money that I need, or I don't feel safe in my finances. Well, usually, just speaking from my own experience, that's because you've starved to death in a past life, right? Or you've been within a relationship where that actually physically happened to you. So sometimes we think we're insane because things get so scary when we know
Mm,
we're okay.
hmm.
But we're tapping into these things that actually happen to us and we're just not conscious of it because luckily we don't remember all of our traumas from past lives. I think we'd be crazy people.
Yeah, I love that you said that because people will be like, "Oh, I want to remember past lives and, like different stuff like that." And there are people that do, right? And I feel the same way. It's like if you're remembering or if you're reconnecting with that, it's really for a reason for you to remove
Yeah.
that block perhaps. Yeah, we don't want to remember all that stuff. Like it would just wouldn't be helpful. It would be like downloading lifetimes of pain and suffering
Yeah.
and maybe joy too. But it would
Yeah.
just be a lot of too much information.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And that sometimes will come in my sessions like, okay, well, you're fighting through this wound because this happened to you, right? Like we don't
Mhm.
have to go into the feeling of it happened to you, but knowing that like your throat's really closed because you literally were hung because you spoke up, right? These
Mhm.
big fears that we have almost always are stemmed in past lifetime trauma creates
Mm.
this lifetime's drama, and it's not we're a victim of this. We're um we're magnetizing this to us so that we can heal if we so
Mhm.
choose. Again, we have free will. We can do whatever we want to do with it. We don't have to, right?
Well, that's kind of funny. Yeah, we do have the free will, right, to change or try something different or heal. And the funny thing is, at least from what I've seen in my own journey too, is like we're like, yes, I want it. I want to do it. And then it starts coming at us and we're like, no.
Just kidding. I don't.
I didn't know I had to do that or,
Yeah.
go through that.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I
Yeah.
think that's really important I'm of course being humorous with it because when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that. But that's why it's so important to connect with people like you really resonate with. So like you, if somebody's hearing this, they need the support and guidance to work through some of that. Like we don't have to do it alone. I think
Yeah.
that's one of those old patterns too that's falling away is like we're so used to figuring things out on our own and that's just not serving us. You were even mentioning that as you were talking about this year and the collective kind of like we're kind of going from that I to the we and like more how are we going to support our community or help our groups change our groups. It's more about community sense more so
Yes.
than it was.
Totally. And I think we underestimate how important it is to be with ourselves and work through our own gooky, shadowy stuff in order for us to show up in a more authentic way in our community or even attract,
So true.
like what we want, like a more aligned energy.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of that means that we're being asked to not do as much and be more. And
Hmm.
also just like see where we are holding resentment for having to be the one that always has to control or always do the thing or make things better. We're all working through our own like victim mentality right now of like, wait, I'm choosing that and I'm resentful as hell about it, but I don't want to be anymore. And like, why am I doing that? And so that takes sitting with it.
Right.
We can't like this year, especially, we can't do our way out of anything. Like, it's just, I promise you, it's not going to work,
Mm.
which to me is like so hard for me personally to just be like, sit
Right.
with an emotion. Don't intellectualize it. Don't look up the astrology on it. Like, it's real. Just sit in it. Like, just be like, I think that's really, at least for me, it's very hard.
I would agree. I mean, it's definitely challenging and probably for most people out there. And it's like I feel like that was what I was doing for the last year. So now I'm like I'm hearing that and part of me is like, can't do it anymore. I gotta go. It's like, just so wanting to jump into action.
Yeah.
But it all works out in time and being patient. Being patient, I think, is one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn with
Yeah,
the last couple of years.
absolutely. And I want to say too, like, it doesn't mean you can't do. It's just that
Right.
we have to come from that B state first and then get the intuitive, okay, now right? Not just
Yeah, just
doing.
not just jumping into the action
Yeah.
just to do it because you're might have scarcity, you might have
Yes.
fear, all those
Yeah.
things.
Like, it's just not
Sitting
going
with
to.
it first.
Yeah, if we do from a place of out of alignment with like I should, I'm shameful, and these programs run so like faintly in the background. Like if you
Mhm.
just sat with shame and guilt, they're so manipulative and like they're little whispers that you don't even realize you're in it. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it's like full on, like I should have, really shameful energy. But if we're coming from that place and we're trying to do, you're going to keep hitting these walls this year where it's like, not bringing in
Mhm.
money. That's not working. And you're going to become more and more frustrated. Versus if you just sit with your inner truth, which this just from a practical lens means like just go turn on some music that makes you feel a certain kind of way and like breathe love in and out of your heart 20 times. Like it doesn't have to be so like you get to meditate for 2 hours and you know what I mean? If you're just more
Yeah.
intentional with the being part so that you're listening, or like
Yeah.
ask your guides in the shower to like clear the energy and give you some information, or if you're just more tuned into that realm of things this year and you move from that place, it will flow. But otherwise, it's not going to because it's not meant to. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm glad you shared it because it's just practical application of what you're sharing, which is so so important.
Yeah.
Um, I think that ties in really too to one question I've been asking a lot of the guests that come on the show is like, what is like one thing you can really leave people with today as they're going into 2025, either a message, whatever it is that you think the audience most needs to hear as they work into the year.
Yeah. So mine's going to be a practical one that's just been showing up in my life a lot, and it's the dream space. I don't know about you, but like dreams are always pretty wild for me, but they're extra, extra wild since the North Node moved into Pisces, and we have so much Pisces
Likewise.
energy, which is this dream, subconscious, unconscious space that we're all swimming and floating in.
Uh-huh.
Um, when you go to bed at night, ask your angels, guides, and ancestors that serve your highest and best, that have your highest and best, right? To if you need some rest because you're not sleeping well. Like I just want to say we're doing so much work in the sleep realm because our ego goes to sleep. And so we're able to like work through a lot of our shadow and emotions, and it's just stuff we're not even fully conscious of. And I think a lot of people are like doing energetic work on the grid system. Like we're just doing all kinds of crazy shit over there. So, like if there's a night where you need to just rest because you're feeling like there's so much going on, ask your guides for better sleep. Ask your guides for ask your guides questions. Can you get answers? Like use your guides this year especially to help support you, because if you don't ask, they don't help. Really, like we need to be intentional about asking them. And in the
Oh,
dream
totally.
and just validating people's, we are doing so much work on that side of even not when we're sleeping, even just being in our day-to-day life. The
Hmm.
stuff that we can't see, that energetic world is so incredibly activated right now.
Okay.
So do your best to like take a walk, get into nature, get in your body, sit by a tree, ask your guides for help, like play in the unseen realms as much as possible to support you because we are doing so much over there. Does that make sense?
I, yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense in it. I'm so glad you shared that because that was like not even on my radar. And when you were starting to say the dreams, I'm like, oh my gosh, my dreams have like I've always had crazy dreams since I was a kid, but they've kicked into overdrive.
Yes.
And it's just a really great awareness to have. Like if you do need a good night's sleep, ask for it. Like asking so much more than maybe you typically do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can't ignore them. They're your support system,
Yeah.
Just
But if you
ask
don't
them.
talk to them, they can't really do anything. As that's kind
Right.
of my understanding. You have to like
Yeah.
ask, connect. Yeah.
Totally. Like they're doing the best they can on the other side to support you. And I imagine that they're doing a lot energetically, but they need to hear it from you in order to, because there's consensual energy exchange that needs to happen. So the more you say these things out loud and or pray in your head or whatever, like I do so much of my spiritual practices when I lay down in bed at night, you
Hmm.
know. Like I do a lot of talking and whatever in the shower, in the bath, like just keeping an open relationship, because the more you do, the more you're gonna feel connected to them and supported by them. And as we move into a different age of time where the earth is going to go through so much shifts, so many shifts, and as are we, like we really want to strengthen that support line.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's like picking up the phone and just dialing in spiritual guides, helpers. Hello.
Need your help.
Yeah, my helpline.
Yes.
No, that's so great and so much great information you've shared with us. I really appreciate you adding to the astrology like side of it because I think as you touched on, there's so much there that people are curious about more than ever. There's so much kind of understanding. I feel like myself included is like on the kindergarten level of understanding it, and we're all kind of like reaching for just more connection with that and more practical, like kind of logical, like explaining of it. Because to
Yeah.
me, it started as a foreign language. I was like, wait, sun, we were saying nodes and sun sign and like all that stuff. And I'm like, now I have the basic understanding, but that does kind of seem like a new language we're all learning a little bit.
Yeah. And I it is. It's totally feels like a foreign language, but also you
It's
are the
not.
sun, you are the moon. Like, you know what I mean? Like you are all these things, and a lot of us have already studied astrology in past lives, and like
Yeah.
it can sometimes just be a remembering. But yeah, it's something too, just like a very practical thing to take away is like if you just follow the seasons like with the sun, whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, like we are, the sun is our life force. We literally get codes. I'm staring at it right now. Like we get codes into our eyeballs to activate our DNA. And humans are, this is going to sound weird, but humans are going to be fed by the sun in later years much more than they're probably fed by food. And
I
so
I've heard that as well. So
have
it's
you?
not weird to
Okay.
me. It might be weird to people listening, but I'm
Yeah,
like, no,
maybe.
yes, I totally hear you.
But like making sure to get into the sun's light, like putting your eyes on it, putting your skin on it. It's been so demonized for a reason, you guys. It's not a demon. Um, and and really like paying attention to like, okay, the sun's lower in the sky, so I should be lower in my energy, right? Like, and it's higher in the sky, I can have more energy. We literally get energy from the sun. So something to just honor those seasons that you're in and honor what the sun is doing.
Mhm. That is really beautiful. And thank you for
Yeah.
adding that perspective to that. And yeah, who knows in 20 years, like I mean, 30 years, it's things are going to be so different. I don't even think we can fathom it. So,
Yeah.
um we shall see. Well,
Mhm.
Stevie, thank you so much for being here today. And if people want to get a hold of you, connect with you, and meet with you, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, so my website is steviecalista.com, or if you're on Instagram, it's Farmhouse Moon. And if you're interested in like working together, getting a session, like just send me a DM or send me an email. Um, and I'd love to chat with you about, how I can support you in understanding your blueprint.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your time today and being here. And I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and listening to this episode. Please take a quick moment just to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, we can bring you more amazing episodes, incredible guests, and more content to support you on your journey within. Thank you for listening.